Good afternoon, members of the Justice Committee, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, and members of the media. Welcome to this committee meeting for today, Thursday, November 6th, 2025. I would like to give a special welcome to the representatives of the Climb Foundation. We have established a quorum of 9 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the following committee members: MP Franklin Myers, MP Ludmila De Weaver, and MP Egbert Duran. Are there any one of the members would like to give any notifications? I see that there's no need to. We have as agenda point, presentation by the Climb Foundation on research studies conducted at the Point Blanche Prison and Miss Lalie Center, IS 12-17-24-25, dated June 27, 2025. Parliament received a letter dated June 27, 2025 from the Climb Foundation with a request for a meeting with this committee to discuss the various research conducted between 2021 and 2025 at the Point Blanche Prison, the House of Detention, and the Miss Lalie Center. These studies focus on academic and literacy assessments, progress report, and program diversity for inmate education. Hence today this meeting. I would now like to give the floor to the representatives of the Climb Foundation for their opening remarks and presentation. Welcome, Dr. Pierre and Dr. Boston. The floor is now yours.
Good afternoon to the honorable members of Parliament, all those here present today, and those viewing and listening. And through you, Mr. Chairman, to the honorable members of this committee, Justice Committee. Climb Foundation would like to thank you for having us. I am Dr. Yadira Boston, and I am joined here today with Dr. Delroy Pierre, experts in education. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the members of Parliament, when examining prison education on St. Martin, written reports and research conducted by Climb Foundation on the Point Blanche Prison and House of Detention, as well as the Miss Lalie Center over the years, support the same complexities and challenges that our very own schools face in education in St. Martin. However, schools, through evaluations and research of systems, have been trying to mitigate these challenges for years based on data, and it remains still a significant challenge. It is through these lenses we need to acknowledge here today that inmates reach the prison gates. Their challenges do not simply disappear. In fact, the complexities of addressing their needs become even more profound. So, Mr. Chairman, through you, to the honorable members of Parliament, the purpose of this meeting is to provide Parliament with data-driven insights on prison education on St. Martin, to support informed decision-making regarding educational programs in correctional institutions, to highlight systemic linkages between schools, their challenges, and prison education outcomes, and to fulfill our moral obligation as experts in education.
In order to fulfill the purpose of the presentation here today, this present discussion, we believe that it is important to let the members of Parliament and the public know who we are so that the authenticity and the relevance of the information shared can be more effectively evaluated. I will begin by describing our roles and experience in the education system. We both taught at all levels within the education system in St. Martin, from primary to secondary to university levels, from public schools to government-subsidized schools. And when the students could not find success within the system, we established a highly effective adult education program specifically designed to meet the needs of St. Martin students who wanted an accredited high school diploma, commonly but simplistically referred to as the GED, with our students going on to become teachers, airplane mechanics, airplane pilots, to work in places such as Silicon Valley, and as close as right here as members of Parliament. This we have been doing for over 25 years, and in addition, our experience within the education system extends not only as teachers, but also to leadership positions within St. Martin's education. So, in recognition of the importance of contextual factors in gaining a deep understanding of educational realities and outcomes, our experience within education has extended to teaching in other Caribbean islands, Panama, and as far as the United Arab Emirates. These experiences have allowed us to gain a comparative perspective and an appreciation for the uniqueness of St. Martin's educational experience. For most of the last 3 years, we have been providing education for inmates at the Point Blanche Prison and for juveniles at the Miss Lalie Center, actually conducting those classes ourselves as the teachers in the classroom. To complement our practical experience within the education system, we have extensive experience as educational researchers. We both have PhDs in creative leadership for innovation and change, with a special emphasis on educational leadership for change from the University of the Virgin Islands. This academic training allows us to use and explore principles of creativity, leadership, and change to identify and address educational, organizational, and systemic problems. We continue to conduct research, both independent and solicited, and continue to write and publish academic research within the educational space. These experiences and training have given us a deep understanding of the system, both as individuals within the system and as individuals who study the system. It has allowed us to recognize the importance of context in identifying and addressing the unique educational needs of inmates. We cannot fail them more than one time. Context, not as something that is placed on the periphery, but as central to successful rehabilitation. It is from this perspective that we conduct today's presentation.
So, Mr. Chairman, through you, it is important to note that there is a complex relationship between education and prison, which is generally referred to as school-to-prison pipeline. Something I have studied myself, not just in St. Martin, but Caribbean prisons, US prisons, and yes, the Netherlands. Just to let you know, through you, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of Parliament, in our schools, many students struggle with reading and mathematics deficiencies, and a significant challenge is the limited availability of reading and mathematics interventions and specialists. While many teachers are trained to conduct reading and maths assessment, the process stops right there, with little to no interventions. Although education systems and schools are working hard to mitigate these challenges, we know this because we are in the system. It remains a significant concern, particularly as students transition into the world, and some end up at prison gates with the same wide literacy challenges and numeracy challenges. Additionally, in schools, there are students with, we say, special needs. The more recent term is students with exceptionalities. These exceptionalities ranging from autism spectrum disorder, to dyslexia, to dyscalculia, to gifted and talented students who require appropriate resources to support their learning needs. We are honored to be among the many St. Martin experts in the field to finalize the St. Martin Special Needs Policy, one that took account other policies from around the world, examine the challenges of those countries, and examine the strengths of those policies. Unfortunately, schools often lack the necessary resources to accommodate these exceptionalities effectively, and this gap also extends to the prison environment. Yes, we do have inmates with exceptionalities at the prison. Additionally, there are students with psychological challenges and even aggressive behavior who reach the prison gates and carry these challenges with them. In addition to these exceptionalities, there are social and structural complexities that must be considered. Some students have dropped out of school as early, Mr. Chairman, through you to the members of Parliament, from elementary school, secondary school, but we also have some who have completed high school and post-high school. So this means, if we take a good look at it, that we have students from kindergarten level, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, we go all the way to high school, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. We have persons with college degrees, Mr. Chairman, through you. And to complicate matters even more so, we also have students who are stateless while attending schools. These individuals remain stateless in society, and they enter the prison stateless. This makes it impossible for them to take internationally recognized and accredited exams such as the GED, because they are unable to have an ID card or even a passport. Furthermore, the diverse and social, linguistic, and cultural backgrounds in the prison can affect the program diversity. The reality, so the conditions create a complex web of variables that affect the delivery of proper prison education in such a unique and social, cultural context, especially since we have one classroom at the prison to accommodate all the needs mentioned above. We, the local experts, are brilliant people. Brilliant because we are able to meet the needs in a single classroom with limited resources, 3 years without any incidents in class. Mr. Chairman, through you to the members of Parliament, I usually say this: we are truly resilient people in St. Martin. If we function with limited resources, imagine when you give local people the resources that they are able to use. Just imagine, I say this to public school teachers, not that we have subsidized schools that lack resources. But once you're able to work in public schools where the resources are limited, I tell public school teachers you can work anywhere. So it is that I would like to say to you, Mr. Chairman. There can be an effective program when it comes to prison education. We have one. To have an effective program, you need to assess students' levels, that's one. So we need to know where these students are. We need to recognize the unique needs of each student and use differentiated instruction, which shows how difficult it is to differentiate. We need to be culturally appropriate. 4, we need to connect the social conditions to learning. And 5, consistently provide the appropriate resources. Research conducted by Klein Foundation indicates that a positive conditions can be achieved in prison education. The foundation has presented its findings and reports to the management team of the Point Blanche Prison and to the Miss Lalie Center, as well to the Ministry of Justice. These studies include the following. In 2021, an academic needs assessment was done. This was actually a very exciting time for the Ministry of Justice and the prison management team as we organized a recruitment drive with Climb Foundation. Inmates attended sessions to learn about the programs. Interested inmates signed up for the programs. It is here I want to make it very clear. The classes have consistently been full, and in many instances, a waiting list had to be created. The prison has one classroom that accommodates 10 inmates. Even then, we doubled the number of classes and still had to put people on the waiting list. At the Miss Lalie Center, it can only accommodate 4 students at one time. Again, we have doubled and tripled. Why did we have to do that? We have some students, even at the MLC, who are minors and cannot sit in class with others that are not minors. In 2022, we conducted a literacy assessment after we noticed the low performance of others when we did our evaluations. This prompted us to assess each participant individually to determine their specific reading levels. One by one, the inmates who signed up for class sat with us in order to determine their exact reading levels. By doing this, we aimed to tailor our support to each participant based on their individual needs. I am a trained literacy specialist. This is a type of skills needed to effectively close literacy gaps. In 2022, we carried out a comprehensive multiple case study for literacy. We did this to gain a deeper understanding of the literacy challenges faced by the inmates. So we conducted interviews, we organized focus groups, and inmates were observed as they responded to the interview questions. They shared their difficulties with literacy at home, including issues such as a lack of quiet space for reading and completing homework, especially those who were surrounded by bars, the importance of having a library to go to a quiet place, as well as the scarcity of books appropriate for the reading levels. Many members and persons in the community, kind-hearted persons, donate books, but it is important for organizations and facilities, managements and leaders to sit together with literacy coaches to find out exactly what type of books that these institutions need. Because we have many books donated to us, and some of the books are lawyer books, and they're unable to use these type of books. Many inmates expressed that school had been their most challenging experiences. Mr. Chairman, through you to the members of Parliament, this was a complete shock to us when we did our research at that time, that school was the worst place for the inmates. They felt that when they struggled with reading, teachers would move on without providing the support, leading to students feeling invisible. Additionally, inmates outlined their ideas for an effective prison education program. This feedback was so instrumental in designing the learning environment. So they told us what they wanted and what they felt was conducive for learning. That is what you want, the stakeholders to be able to share with you how their environment should be. Suggestions included incorporating visuals such as posters, adding displays, positive notes on the wall, and ensuring the presence of a teacher who was willing to work with them individually, because some persons don't want others to know that they have challenges with reading and so forth, and one that cares. And Mr. Chairman, through you, at one point, we even had an aquarium with fish and turtles. It was used for the calm down part of the classroom. In 2023, until present, we have developed the progress reports and shared those. As researchers, we believe that it is important that you have data and you act on the data. We have also presented detailed reports to both the management team and to the Ministry of Justice. These reports typically include samples of students' work, their levels, the challenges we face, the recommendations for us to move forward, and it even highlights each stakeholder's responsibility. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the members of Parliament, Client Foundation contract with the Ministry of Justice will expire on December 1st, 2025, which is just a few weeks away. Therefore, on November 20th, we will submit the final report. Additionally, we have requested an opportunity to discuss the final report with the stakeholders. And finally, from 2024 to 2025, Client Foundation, in collaboration with the inmates, consistently appealed for more program diversity. A joint list of desired courses was sent to the prison management team and the Ministry of Justice.
What this shows, to summarize, it shows that it is important to recognize that prison education, being part of our overall system, reflects the same inequities and challenges that are found in schools, except on a more critical scale where culture, identity, and other social aspects play a pivotal role. If we want inmates to be truly rehabilitated, where they can enter the job market with sufficient literacy and numeracy skills, and even social skills, we must pay attention to the underdevelopment of these skills in inmates and the underlying cause of these underdevelopment. We must, therefore, pay attention to whatever special needs that they may be present, not just in passing, but as central to the rehabilitation process. It is counterproductive to not address these as foundational to any form of prison education. Such an approach, which dramatically increases the likelihood of success, recognizes that a data-informed, inclusive, and culturally grounded approach to prison education and rehabilitation is essential for the success of any program that may be implemented. Doing otherwise will allow the prisoners to lose trust and therefore diminish the importance of any such program.
It is with immense gratitude that Client Foundation honors all directors, former ministers of justice, correctional officers, administrators, and most importantly, its dedicated inmate students. Its dedicated inmate students. Its dedicated inmate students whose contribution have made these programs a resounding success. Thank you for trusting your local educational experts, Dr. Yadira Boston and Dr. Delroy Pear. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boston. Thank you, Dr. Pear, for your detailed presentation to the members of Parliament. And at this time, I turn to the members of Parliament. To which member of Parliament do I give the floor for any elaboration or any questioning? I see we have Honorable MP Omar Otley. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a little humor. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to Dr. Boston and Dr. Pear. I can say one thing, dedication. Dedication is a word that I definitely would use to describe the two that are in front of us. I often go to my visits, and faithfully, I see Dr. Pear waiting on Miss Boston to pick him up. And what I see is that in our system, it's a lack of rehabilitation. And reoccurring crimes is not just, some people don't commit crimes just to commit crimes. Some people commit crimes as ways and means to survive. Now, I say this as there's no excuse for crime. You do the crime, you do the time. However, circumstances make certain people who they are. And I can remember back in the days where different districts would have different projects and government would be booming, and St. Peter's would have a project that's going on for 2 years. I specifically worked on that project in 2008. And right after that, Colby had a project. There were many projects, and the government would stipulate that guys in the neighborhood or the contractor would have to hire a certain amount of guys from that neighborhood. So whether you hire 10, 15, 20 guys, those guys will be employed for that period of time, be it 6 months, a year, 2 years. What that does, it decreases crime because you have a steady flow of income. Crime can never be stopped. I want to make it clear, but it can be suppressed. The reasoning behind the crime can be attacked. And that is why we are calling for a broader scope on this crime crisis that we have on the island. And what we do have is this. Some of the persons that used to work are no longer working in the neighborhoods because there's no projects. And some of them are going to try to get jobs, but you are ex-felon or ex-con, you are not being hired. And others do not have a skill. Because you take a young man, you lock him in a cell for 10 years, a 14-year-old, just an example, or even an 18-year-old, if you want to be clear, you lock him in a cell for 10 years, by the time he come out, he's 28. If he don't go to these programs, he has no motor skills. What is he accustomed to doing? Waking, sleeping, whatever else for recreation. And then you put him out in the world and say, survive. So these programs are very important. And usually a lot of people think they have things have to be given to them because they're local. But I can tell you, this local duo right in front of us have shown their commitment. If the essence of the meeting is indeed that, because I heard you mention that through you, Mr. Chair, that the contract is expiring, I would like to know, what is the process for renewal? Is there conversations right now for renewal? Who renews the contract? Is it the Minister of Justice? Is it the prison? Also, who funds this organization? Mr. Chair, if we don't prioritize education, prioritize skilled labor, education does not only has to be books, it can be skilled labor. If we do not prioritize that, we will have a serious problem. The reality of things is, when we pass all these high schools and middle schools, and a day I was sitting and thinking, and I pray not, but I'm going to talk realistically. I pray not. But even from people that I went to school with, I'm thinking about us in 4th grade, 5th grade, and seeing some of them in prison today. You never know where life is going to turn out. And when you watch our youth, the reality is some are going to be sitting right here, some are going to be prime ministers, some are going to be ministers, some are going to be teachers, some are going to end up in the system. We don't want it in a perfect world, but the reality is some of our youth are going to end up in the system. Because everybody that is in the prison system right now that is grown men was once kids. And I say this is one of the times I've seen prison get the most attention, because we are starting to realize that prison ain't for dogs, according to the old people. It's for human. And you can be a mad, dull citizen until somebody mess with your kid, and you can end up in prison. Till somebody mess with your family, and you can end up in prison. Till you defend yourself and the judge don't see it that way, and you end up in prison. You never know. Politicians, doctors, lawyers are in prison. We even see judges ended up in prison, former ministers. So it's made for humans. So the fact in the matter is, let us start the rehabilitation process. St. Martin does not give excessive life sentences. So 95% of the time, the people will be back in our society. Whether it's today, tomorrow, a year from now, they will be back in our society. And the job that I see this duo is doing is preparing them to be back in society, to not return to Point Blanche. I love the rendering of the new prison. I love it. But what are we going to do to ensure that the prison, that we are increasing the amount of cells that we don't need to increase later on? Because we're just going to end up increasing until we have to put 2, 3 prisons in St. Martin if we don't fix the system. Working, education, rehabilitation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, MP Otley. I see we have another speaker. MP Lacruz, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Griffier, my fellow colleagues, and all those listening via social media. Thank you, Dr. Boston, Dr. Pierre, for your presentation. I have a couple questions and, a comment before. I've always said, and I said it in a previous justice meeting also, I said, I am not interested in nice building, all of that. I am interested in rehabilitation. I am interested in making sure that our kids don't end up there. The amount of money that we're spending for a nice facility is, but that money should have been spent a long time ago in education to make sure that our kids don't end up there. But nevertheless, like my fellow colleague MP Otley mentioned, that doesn't matter what happens, they will always have people in prison. So we need to take care of them once they are there. What is your opinion on making the programs that you gave in the House of Detention mandatory? And would that, if that is part of a sentence, for example, that a person gets a sentence of 5 years, 10 years, that by the judge, it is placed that they have to follow classes, or because I understood that it is voluntary, and that makes it almost impossible, I think, because everybody wants to play bad and look bad, So, and I don't know if I'm correct on that, but would that be possible, and how do you see it before you? Then the reports that are going to be delivered to all the stakeholders, are those also going to be sent to Parliament? And a question, in those reports, are there going to be your suggestions and ideas on how to remedy some of the problems that we're having now? Those are my 2 questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Lacruz. Does any other member wishes the floor? MP Irian, you have the floor. Okay, I see that we have a change. So MP Sarah Westcott-Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good afternoon to you, to my colleagues, and a special good afternoon to Dr. Boston and Dr. Pierre here with us this afternoon. Thank both of you for the presentation and clear your findings, your work on this matter thus far. And so with this report, which is going to be presented, and also with stakeholders, and what, in your opinion, and maybe it's in the report, are your suggestions for the next step? So government is going to get this report. Again, what are the recommendations for government from this point onward? And yeah, what are those recommendations, and what are, in your view, the next steps to make this not just a project, but a program? That's, yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, if our both guests can just give me some insights into where do we go from here? This is actually my question now, with what we have before us, what they have learned and presented. Where do we go from here on this topic? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I now give the floor over to MP Labega. MP Labega, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to Dr. Pierre and Dr. Boston. Thank you for your in-depth presentation and your dedication to this topic. When it comes to the rehabilitation, I want to know if there's any mindset training, personal development training, because it's one thing to learn the skills in prison, but then when you come outside, your mindset has to be extremely strong, because you will hear no a lot of times. You know, all the skills that you have learned, you acquired, people may still see you as the inmate. You know, when you fill up your application, have you been incarcerated, et cetera, they just might look at that and write you off. So your mind has to be strong to go through the rejections. So if that can be taught inside of prison, to prepare for the rejections, you know, and keep pushing, don't give up. I could draw a reference on my experience when I was going through my situation in the Netherlands, and I came out. I have a degree in business and psychology, and I remember I went to a temp agency to try to wash dishes in Den Haag, and they told me I couldn't wash dishes because I didn't have any experience. I didn't have experience washing dishes. I'm like, okay, you know. So if you don't have that strong friends, family structure, you can easily be led astray. Another thing too is to also prepare the family for inmates that are coming home soon. You know, go and talk to the family. I don't know if it's already done or not, but go talk to the family, because if you're incarcerated for a couple of years, maybe your whole family situation that you left is totally different. Whether it's parents, whether it's children in the home, maybe older, you know. So if inmates know, or the family knows ahead of time how to prepare for that situation, and will it be positive for that inmate to come home, that might also help to curb a lot of tensions that the inmate could come home to, that could be created between the home and the inmate. You've been away for a lot of years, all of a sudden you come home and it's this, you know, tension. You can't get a job for a certain amount of time, and certain expectations that are forced. That's why I also think the creation of a halfway home type setup will be a good thing, even to inmates if they secure a job together, some organization where they could rent an apartment together, share the living expenses, so they'll have their freedom and some dignity as well. So in closing, mindset training, I believe it's very, very important, so they have the fortitude to keep on pushing even though they hear those no's. Because most, I would say, a lot of people who go down the wrong path, they're very intelligent when it comes to creativity, you know, and if that creativity can be channeled into the proper avenues, then they'll have a high success rate when they come out. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Labega. I see MP Irian wishes the floor. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, even though I'm not part of this committee, I thought it was a very important topic. And the data that was provided today, I believe what it shows in the presentation of what was said, that the discussion today isn't just about the prison or even rehab. What I get from the presentation actually is even more than that. It's actually the tools to prevent incarceration. Because now we have the data. In the presentation, I saw a persistent link, connection between educational gaps that lead to incarceration. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. So it mentioned that persons or individuals that have deficiencies when it comes to literacy and numeracy have a higher chance of being incarcerated, right? And that's what I'm getting. So that means we now know areas to focus on in our education system. We now know if you want to lower the percentage or the chances or the risk of, we have to now focus right now on improving those gaps. So even, for me, it's even more than rehab. This is basically prevention. In addition to that, he also mentioned about the assessments. We need to have continued assessments. These assessments, I'm assuming you mean at what levels? High school levels, primary school levels? Where is dyslexic, you mentioned, some other behavioral assessments. Where would you like to see these assessments happen? What age groups? And what schools? In terms of level. And then also the path forward. We have the data now. As MP Westcott mentioned, where do we go from here now? Do we focus more on the preventative measures, or do you focus now more on the current situation at the prison? So, unless we have gaps, because we have the gaps in terms of literacy and numeracy. Some also in presentation mentioned dropping out earlier in school, so dropping out in primary school, high school. So the gaps are vary. So how can we create one curriculum then that addresses somebody from a kindergarten level up into high school level? Because now there's various gaps now. So how do you see that work in terms of a sort of a curriculum? And yes, and I think I appreciate the work and the studying, the research. And I think, like I said in the beginning, it's more important now that we execute on the data that we have. So now we have the data, and I think that's too many times in St. Martin that we collect the data, we do all this research. But if we really want to have impact, the goal is now, how do we execute on this data? What are the next fastest steps? Because of course it'll be a long-term plan, but what are the initial next steps that we can take? And I think also where we put the funding. Where do we put the funding now to be able to say, hey, we're not, this is the last prison we're going to build, because we're going to take the steps today to ensure that we reduce the chances of incarceration as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Irian. I see that MP Veronica Webster, Johnson-Webster wishes the floor. MP Johnson-Webster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to my colleagues, and good afternoon and welcome to Dr. Pierre and Dr. Boston. I have had the distinct pleasure to witness Dr. Boston in action at the Lalie Center, and I must commend her. I must commend the Climb Foundation on the work that they are doing, because you can see the satisfaction in the inmates and how they feel going through the programs. Through you, Mr. Chairman, it was mentioned that a list was sent to prison management for proposed new courses, and I wanted to know what, for instance, were those courses? What do they entail? So if we could know what was on the list. And also, when it was mentioned that it is noticed that the schools suffer from reading and numeracy challenges, I wanted to know, in your opinion, is it more numeracy or more reading? Which one is more prevalent? I myself, I do remedial teaching, or I have done remedial teaching in maths. And what I have noticed in schools, I've noticed it with people struggling with numeracy, is just the basic timetables that we in my days back in the 70s, we got that hammered in literally with a drum, that you learned your timetables. And you need your timetables for anything that you want to do later on with maths. That's my opinion, and that's how I teach people. And I just wanted to know if with the numeracy, when you meet people, when you meet inmates, what is their level of their timetables? It's something that I'm studying. I just want to know. Because to me, you can't have numeracy if you don't know your timetables. And in 3rd grade and 4th grade, it used to be the thing that you learned. And I am missing it now in education. Then the minister, my last question, the Minister of Justice just had a launch of rehabilitation, etc. And what I wanted to know is if CLIME was involved in any way or invited or consulted with this whole new project. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Johnson-Webster. I now give the floor over to MP Shamida Roseberg. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am super excited to see that CLIME Foundation is here. Also would like to thank the CLIME Foundation for their presentation. My colleagues asked a lot of questions. I have a few other follow-up questions. It's a fact, and I think we can all agree, that rehabilitation and resocialization are the key. I've always said it, and often when it's being asked, why have you been defending persons who are accused of committing crimes? I always just say, first of all, everybody has a right to a defense. And other than that, once you do the crime and you do the time, you want them to come out better and you want them to not reoffend. In the past 11 years, I've seen that a lot of programs that were in place, for example, carpentry, sewing classes, also GAD, music class, washing cars, that currently isn't in place anymore, has to do with passing of Hurricane Irma and maybe other factors. Now that we have the CLIME Foundation being actively in the Point Blanche Prison and also in Miss Lalie Center, I have the following questions. It was asked already by my colleagues in some shape or form, but I want to know, next to GAD, what other programs are being offered, if any? And the previous speaker, MP Johnson-Webster, already asked that question, what is being suggested to be offered and what was presented for us to get clarity on that. In regards to MLC, MLC currently we have the juvenile center, which is operating as a semi-juvenile center, plus to have the ones that are young adolescents placed in the juvenile center. I would like to know, are the ones that are currently incarcerated between 12 and 18 years, are they getting the education as prescribed by law? Because the law states that until you're 18, you have to follow education. And there are a certain amount of hours of education that you need to follow. Are these juveniles getting that? And if not, how much hours of education are they getting? And to clarify that, are the teachers coming to the schools, or is it the CLIME Foundation that is providing that part of education? Other than that, in regards to the gap between the young adolescents and the minors, how is that being splitted? If that can be more clarified. In regards to Point Blanche Prison, the 86 prisoners. How much of those prisoners are following education through the Climb Foundation at this moment? I know that in regards to inmates, once they are convicted, you cannot force them to follow education. What is currently in place to have them still participate? Do you all believe in creating incentives for the ones that are not willing to participate, or that maybe find it a step too far? And if so, what kind of incentives do you believe in? For example, if reading books is one of them, that if you read a certain amount of books, then you can get the incentive. Other than that, I have seen the GAD program, for example, that was successful, but I also have heard that there were a lot of inmates, for example, asking them, why are you not participating in a GAD? Yes, I cannot read, as mentioned, or nah, I ain't doing that, why would I do it? So do you believe that other than a GAD programs, that there should be more hands-on jobs available? What is your view in regards to having the option of creating jobs from within? Having the option of, it was mentioned in the past in another meeting already, barbershop creation, being an entrepreneur, nail salons, options, and that also jobs from within the community. You can get a certificate, and then once you're out, that can fill the gap, that you have that stability that you're looking for to come out after serving a sentence of maybe 10, 15 years. But when you leave, you will not go back to your old behaviors because you have the stability of a job available. So the working together with the business community. Let me see if there are other questions that I have. The combination of working with your organization, for example, and others, and the crime fund to have the crime prevention. So, and the last question, are there other organizations that Climb is working with to provide job opportunities and also education opportunities for the inmates of MLC and also Point Blanche Prison? Those are my questions for now. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. I would like to give a brief adjournment. No? You good? You sure? Okay. Well, the doctors are really doctors. Well, I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Pierre or Dr. Boston, who feels fit to answer the questions of the members of Parliament at this time.
Thank you so much to the members of Parliament for their questions. Many of the questions, or some of the questions asked, absolutely does not pertain to Climb Foundation, but I will speak about that as we get there. I would like to start with MP Omar Utley. So one of the questions he had was about the renewal of our contract, Climb Foundation. And I am happy the question came first, because maybe if I had a chance to answer MP Utley's own first, then the remaining of the questions would not have come. There was a tender that was, in 2023, I think, yeah. There was a tender that was put out. This was for any person on St. Martin or organization to submit a proposal to be able to host classes, GED, at the Point Blanche Prison. When I read the tender, first thing I said, this is terrible, the way this tender came out. And it was something to the then Minister of Justice that I spoke about as well, because it narrowed it to GED, which even when we listen to Parliament or we hear, look at the briefings, it is clear that many do not understand GED. I would love to have a session where I can explain it clearly, because we have done this for the community as well. So to answer MP Omar's question, Climb Foundation has no intention at all to resubmit to work at the prison. We have no desire to continue. This is also in line with, at our level of education, we came here today to speak to Parliament, which is the highest body, because we've already spoken to the Ministry of Justice, and we've spoken to stakeholders in education, and we work very closely with the Ministry of Education, which is on other projects. So we are extremely diverse. We have reached a point where we no longer want to discuss or have to advocate to explain what is necessary for courses or to explain how students can be successful after we have on every single level in St. Martin and out of St. Martin. So we basically came here today to share, and this would also come in with answering a question from the Honorable MP Westcott as well. The reports have been given. This is not a report coming. In the presentation today, we stated that various reports over the years have been sent to the ministry. We have also had ongoing reports, and that was the reason for bringing in the contract situation. We spoke about the contract because we will give a final report, and we also want to present the final report. That's all. We have no intentions of applying, or to answer another MP's question, I want to make sure which MP asked that. I think is MP Veronica Janssen. Were we consulted when it came to the new prison and all the things that's happening with the new prison? No, we were not. We were never contacted. We were never called. Stakeholders who we are have never been asked. This is why we found it important to share with Parliament what exists. That's all. That's it. It's just to share what is already there. So if Parliament would like to be able to ask the Ministry of Justice at any time, all the documentation is at the Ministry of Justice. So MP Omar Utley, we will not be doing that. And the funding comes from the tender from the Ministry of Justice. They are the body that is responsible for that. MP La Cruz, you want to do that one, Dr. Pierre?
Yes. For MP La Cruz, and MP La Cruz asked a question about voluntary. If it is voluntary, and I think another MP also asked that question also too. What I will do is I will overlap some of the answers, because what we have to recognize, and I think this is what Dr. Boston is actually speaking about, like I outlined in the beginning, we are both educators in practice as we are in the classroom, but at the same time, we are also researchers. That means we know the literature on education. And it sometimes becomes frustrating to try to explain to individuals who do not have the depth of knowledge that we do what exactly needs to happen. So there is no disconnect between social emotional development and education. So when MP Labega asked the question about mindset training, these are natural parts of teaching. You cannot teach without paying attention to an individual's social emotional development. And we have argued for that because one of the challenges, and again, if we look at the inmates from a human standpoint, like Dr. Boston said, there was no need for us to bring in fish and a turtle and to have nice pictures on the wall or a rug or a chair that they can sit with cushion and all of those things. But we recognize that in order for an individual to truly learn, their mind must be in a certain space. Which brings me to the other question about what can be done to make them come. If we are in the prison teaching and we know that you cannot force somebody to come, but if you create the environment and the space that makes it a safe space, then they come. So we didn't have that issue. As a matter of fact, classes were sometimes scheduled for an hour and 15 minutes, and you would have to get individuals to get up and leave, telling them that the time is up. So there is no need to make it mandatory if you pay attention to the social emotional as the foundation of education. This aspect also goes right back to the idea of, and so I will combine MP Irian's question with MP Veronica Webster's question also too. MP Irian asked about the idea of assessments. It is both. It is an attention to a rehabilitation and prevention at the same time. It is not an either or. It is both at the same time. And when we're speaking about assessment, assessment should be everywhere. A teacher cannot teach without being informed. That is the reason why assessments are done. If we're thinking about the traditional way that most of us went through school, where an assessment was done at the end of the chapter, and then you fail and the teacher moved on to the next chapter, that is not the role of assessments. Assessments are meant to inform how it is that you teach. So assessment should be ongoing. There shouldn't be something like students should be assessed in 2nd grade, or they should be assessed in 4th grade, or they should be assessed before they go into prison. There should be continual assessment, which brings me to this idea from mathematics now, something that we did not see. I have designed the only mathematics book that is aligned with the foundation-based education system in St. Martin. I have taught mathematics for years. I teach mathematics at the university. I also teach a mathematics class at the University of the Virgin Islands, where I teach teachers how to teach mathematics. The idea is not about the timetables. The idea, especially in 2025, is the idea that students do not understand mathematics conceptually. It is not about memorization. It is about conceptually and problem solving. So for example, when we conduct class with the inmates, the idea is to connect the class to the real world. If you are talking to a guy and you tell him, okay, if you leave here right now and then you get a job and the job is going to pay you $25 an hour and you work 2 hours every day, how much do you expect to make at the end of the month? And this is the reason why I do not like that dialectic of academic compared to vocational. It is both. There is no way that you can get an individual to do carpentry without understanding fractions for him to calculate in inches. There is no way that you can get somebody to be a cook and they do not understand how to do measurements, nor how to read the recipe. And I think this is the reason why when Dr. Boston spoke about the idea that we were adamant, we said it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, more than 10 times about the idea that the education program in the prison should not be called a GED program. It should be called an educational program. And that would remove the stigma that MP Roseberg mentioned about where guys felt that they are not going to come to the class because they are not on a GED level. It is on a level for you, and we protect you when you come to the class. So if you cannot write your name, your neighbor could be sitting down right next to you and would not know that. And we took pride in doing that, and this is the reason why Dr. Boston spoke about the fact that we have been there for about 3 years now with 0 incidents inside of the classroom. Because we protect your ego, we recognize the social emotional connection between education and the person's life. I think that was that there. Oh, and the suggestions for the next steps. As a person, one of my main areas of research is in the area of systems thinking, where I recognize that things cannot be done in isolation. One aspect of a system have a tremendous impact on another. So what can be done? What is the next step? The next step has to involve a mobilization of all individuals. Why? Because a plan means nothing without action. Thinking actually happens when we act. It's only when we act we can know what is working and what is not working, and then we go through cycles of improvement. Therefore, action needs to happen. We have spoken, like Dr. Boston said, numerous times already. All the recommendations are there. Actions need to be taken. And I will go back to what I mentioned about culturally appropriate. It has to be culturally appropriate, and it has to come from the stakeholders, namely the prisoners, in order for us to understand what exactly is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pear. I think that you also answered MP Westcott's question with systems thinking. I do want to also just add to a recommendation that MP Westcott, the Honorable MP Westcott, asked. A recommendation that I would give, that we would give, and we said it in the presentation, is local. Local. There's no one that knows our students better than us. And I think that is why the students trusted us. We feel like them. We lived in villages like them. We went to schools like them. And that's why when we entered there, we hardly had any. We had no problems. So I would say to keep it culturally suitable, to answer MP Westcott's question. When it comes to MP Roseberg as well, I know that Dr. Pear shared some parts of it. MP Roseberg, through you, Mr. Chairman, the TOR, the terms of reference, so I can understand why. I do not blame Parliament for saying GED. We don't. Because the reason that the TOR said GED is for this very same reason that I'm going to say here. The person that wrote the TOR, very wonderful young lady, very educated, but not in education. She is educated in justice. And therefore, when she wrote the TOR, and to write it as GED, and many person misconceptions of what GED is, because I have heard persons, even on this floor of Parliament, say, let them just do their GED because they fall out of school or they can't read or different things you would hear. And you sit there and you're like, wow, is that what people think about the GED? Even Harvard University takes the GED. The GED has gone up to college level. So we even tell persons in the community who's trying to drop out of school for GED, we tell them don't do that. That's not a replacement. However, there are some persons who cannot be in traditional schools for various reasons. And the GED has been there for them for that. And as simple things as Hurricane has taken the diplomas of many, and they reach out to us even though they already have their high school. It's just for them to get the GED to go on and go to college or do something else. So, some of the questions that you asked, through you, Mr. Chairman, to MP Roseberg, information where it pertains specifically to MLC, we will not share that information. It's in the reports, and you can get that from Justice. I would like to say that, like Dr. Pear mentioned, the students are not just doing levels of subjects for GED, but also they're doing things with literacy. All classes are full. We can't hold another person. And there are persons that want to get into the program there at MLC. So that information will be sensitive. Someone asked if the report will be shared with Parliament. The report will not be shared. The reports are very sensitive with names of inmates and their levels, but that information you can access it from the Ministry of Justice. So we give them that respect that the information was sent to them, and all reports are at the Ministry of Justice. So if they would love to share that with Parliament, I think that would be an ideal thing to do so that you can make informed decisions together. I also want to highlight what Dr. Pierre said about vocational subjects. I heard when MP Roseberg said, through you, Mr. Chairman, about some students can't read, but maybe she doesn't mean this, but that was the next sentence. So maybe they might want to do vocational subjects. I can tell you this, when I worked at a vocational training school here in St. Martin, we wanted to do TVET. So we wanted to do vocational, we wanted to get Jamaica to come down and recognize us and for those type of courses. And I can clearly recall that when they came to see how compliant we were, they looked at our carpentry and welding and they gave us a thumbs up and told us, you know, just the signs we have to put to be careful and so forth. However, we got a thumbs down because the reading levels at vocational training school was extremely low. And what was said to us is that there is a misconception that people believe because you can't read, go do vocational. So there is where we had to pull up the reading levels or try to pull up reading levels so that stigma of vocational or technical education, that can be reversed. That students, just imagine those big technicians that we have out there, vocational persons, even the teacher at the time at the school, he can read, but he's a mechanic. So to tell students, if you can't read, to do vocational or mechanic, you know, that is a misconception that we want to, definitely we want to erase that right here because a lot of people are listening. Educators are listening, students, even the inmates, they're listening too. So it's important to make that part clear. With that, I think we would like to close off. If there's a question that I miss, the members of Parliament, through you, Mr. Chair, can ask those questions. The TOR was set up specifically for GED. What we came in and what we did there was we decided to. We tested the students. We recognized these students. These students are on GED level. The students that came to us, they weren't on GED level. When we had to go back and do literacy one by one to see their level. And then based on that, we developed a literacy program. And that's why MP, through you, Mr. Chairman, MP Jansen was also invited. It's not just GED. There's more things happening. And I'm going to end off with this, through you, Mr. Chairman. I have asked my students that conduct research, I'm not talking at the prison, not to go to the Ministry of Education, the ministry's pages, and use them as resources and facts. I have told them that. You know why? I have read and also listened to briefings where it's stated that there's no GED going on and this is before the fire, there's no GED going on at Point Blanche Prison, and I'm in the classroom teaching. And therefore, when students are looking for things, and I've witnessed that. I've also witnessed where it says that there's limited, hardly anyone wants to go to the GED classes. Wow, when we have a waiting list. So therefore, the ministry's pages and press briefings are not to be trusted. From my point of view, because it happened to me personally. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Boston and Dr. Pear. I turn to the floor of Parliament, and I see we have MP Shamira Roseberg is requesting the floor. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the answers provided so far. Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to know if I understood correctly in regards to the part of education as prescribed by law. I would like to know, because I didn't get that answer, if the amount of hours that is requested by law, if the juveniles are currently getting that. That question wasn't answered. If it cannot be answered, then that is also an answer, of course. But that was one of my questions. Also to clarify, seeing that something was addressed in regards to how I asked my question. I would like to clarify that I do not believe that once you cannot read, or because you cannot read, then you go to vocational school. So if it was said like that, I would like to clarify that, because I agree a lot of people are listening. What I wanted to say, and if I didn't say that, I would like to know if next to the classes that are being offered by the Klein Foundation, not putting it under the chapter of GED, although that's being set in the Volksmond, in the regular, how do you say Volksmond? I don't know how to say that in English right now, but the program with Klein is connected to GED, as how I have seen it. Has now been clarified that it's not only GED that is being offered. That's why I would like to know through you, Mr. Chair, what is being offered exactly next to GED, next to, I understood, the literacy program. What else is being offered through this foundation? I didn't get that, or maybe I missed it, but I would like to get that clarified. And then next to that, I'm curious, because I find it very unfortunate to hear that there is no interest in continuing. And yes, I have experienced Dr. Pierre and Dr. Boston the past years, and now to hear that that interest is not there anymore, and hearing on the other side the passion that is being spoken with, and also the love and care that is being offered, I cannot sit still and ignore that part. And I'm very much curious, like why? Like why, like after the agreement ends, like what's going to happen? I'm confused. And why are you all not, through you, Mr. Chair, not participating or continuing with this matter? And then also, that's really like with, I find it very sad to hear that, because I know that if you all fall out, there is currently nothing in place. So what will happen? Like, I'm not going to let this meeting end and leave that elephant in the room, because I understood, yes, the minister provided a whole presentation explaining, yes, there will be a rehabilitation program in place with UNOC and persons that, and I'm not going to ignore that part either, non-locals. And several times during this meeting, it was mentioned, we need our people. And I'm not going to ignore that that is needed, because in court, you see the disconnect. You see the disconnect with inmates sitting in court, having Dutch white prosecutors, Dutch white judges, yes, local lawyers, but there is a disconnect. So if now I'm hearing, and I want to know if I heard correctly, you all, through you, Mr. Chair, Dr. Boston, Dr. Pierre, Klein Foundation will stop, and we have UNOC continuing with the rehabilitation. Like, who is going to make sure that that gap is being, that disconnect will not grow further, seeing that you all in the 3 years have brought that gap closer? So I would like that question answered. If the other questions which are sensitive in regards to education, etc., cannot be answered, I will request that through the Justice Ministry. But I do not want, and I'm asking you, Mr. Chair, to ensure that that happens, that this meeting doesn't end without getting that clarity, if I understood correctly, that it was said that Klein Foundation will stop. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, MP Roseberg. Are you able to answer right now, Dr. Pierre? 1 second. Before I give you the opportunity to answer, Dr. Boston, I have MP Westcott Williams that wishes the floor. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would just like Dr. Boston, or Dr. Pierre for that matter, to confirm when we speak about reports having been sent to government, and I clearly understand you're saying they were made for them, so anyone distributing or sharing would be the ones to whom you presented the reports, and that's the Minister of Justice. So I would like to know, are we talking about reports, so more than one? I get it that that's what we're doing, so I would just like that to be confirmed, because then my follow-up question would be, And these are successive reports based on time, based on topics. So, what are they all about? Is it just a matter of, after a year, whatever, you gave a yearly update? So just explain me, we're talking about more than one report, and what are they individually about? And then secondly, Mr. Chairman, I would want to recommend to this committee that a letter be sent to the Minister of Justice to get clarification on a very clear position that Dr. Boston presented in terms of there, to use MP Shamira's word, there seemed to be a serious disconnect between what is being portrayed and what is actually happening on the ground. And I think we need to get clarity about that. Are we on a different level in terms of speaking specifically to the minister saying, and now I'm paraphrasing, this program is not taking place? And I'm understanding it to be that at that time, Dr. Boston and maybe Dr. Boston and Dr. Pierre were on the ground, on the work floor, in the same program that the minister is saying that was no longer taking place. So if we can get that clarified, was it something that we're talking, when I say different levels, I mean the minister talking about something else and something differently happening on the floor, or what? But this question, now that we have heard it from Dr. Boston, this question, I think this committee can very specifically ask the minister. When you said that this was not taking place any longer, what did you really mean when we're hearing that actually it was ongoing while you were saying that? To paraphrase what Dr. Boston says, I would really like to get clarity. Are we talking out of the same book where this program and these initiatives are concerned? That's my question. We being the minister and those on the ground, as we call it. So if we can ask as a committee just for us to get clarification on that issue, because then maybe other things are not really in sync in terms of what is happening and what is being told, what we and the general public are being told that is happening. I just want to understand where that is kind of separate from each other. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. I now give the floor over to MP La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you to Dr. Boston and Dr. Pierre, there's a difference between passion and anger and frustration, okay? And I've sat here during the whole presentation, and I was wondering which is it. I'm somewhat happy to hear that, the foundation has no interest in even taking part of the tender again, but mainly for one reason, because I would have liked to hear exactly what is the frustration, or what is the problem. And I'll explain why through you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that anyone here on this side in Parliament has received a report. I've never seen a report. I even asked MP Westcott if a report was brought to us, that we could have looked at from before, see what the problems were, to then have this type of, it bothers me to actually sit on this side and feel like there is nothing you can do, MP La Cruz. And that is why I ask, one specific question concerning the mandatory, then I understood that it is not even needed because everyone wants to. But I would have liked to leave from here with at least one or two things that we as members of parliament, could do to make sure that another local takes your place but doesn't leave the same way you are leaving? That is important to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP La Cruz, for those questions and statements, and I now give the floor over to MP Jansen-Webster. MP Jansen-Webster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask the Klein Foundation via you, Mr. Chairman, if they have been informed that their program will be discontinued, or it's just that their contract is finishing. That's one. You briefly mentioned the terms of reference being written by someone from justice and not someone who understands education. I was wondering if there's something specific in there that turned you off, that you're not willing now to continue. I think like some of the other MPs in here, what you brought forward to us was a surprise. And I'm stunned, and I just wanted to know, I mean, you're going to miss your students, and your students are really going to miss you. And I have followed you all. I'm sorry. It's emotional, but it's. I have followed you all, and I've seen what you all have been doing for inmates, for students on St. Martin, and I think our young inmates need you all. So if you could let us know what we would need to do to make it possible for you to want to stay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Jansen-Webster. Before I adjourn for 3 minutes, I would like to also say this. Because Dr. Pierre, I have known you since I was a teenager. As a student also going to different schools, and I've seen your passion. I have also been part of your program as former Minister of Education as well, your researches, etc. We have personal conversations as well with Dr. Boston with regards to my input and my own initiative when other people have issues with their children, getting them into programs, etc. So we do have that personal relationship when it comes to the educational part with the services that you render for children in this country. And I do share the sentiments with my fellow colleagues, especially with MP Jansen-Webster, because I too was baffled when I understood that you have no, I can't quote you exactly right now, but basically you all will be discontinuing and you have no kind of interest to continue. But it's something to rethink. That's my advice. And like I say, you have to be open. This is the highest body, as you also noted, in this country. And how we, as members of parliament, can assist not only you, because what we're doing is on behalf of this country. So I think it's important for you to revisit, to rethink, and to reflect on the program and be honest with the members of parliament as to what is going on, even if it has to go into a closed-door session, in order for us to move this country forward, because the youths of tomorrow has to be our leaders. We have an influx of all type of nationalities for over the years. All of us come from somewhere in this country, but I think the melting pot is already, everything's already melted. We have the individuals here. And the young minds, we need them here in order to lead this country tomorrow. Because somebody inside of there, in Point Blanche Prison, I was contacted by a fellow inmate over the weekend. I was contacted by one. This is a big man to myself. and he told me he knew my grandmother when she was the prison chaplain, and how she was a great inspiration to him. Today, that man has his own businesses. He builds home. He's in the church. His child is going in the Pathfinders. These are the type of things that you all have molded in individuals as well. So if you all stop, like I say, we know what we have now. We do not know what we're going to get. With that said, we are going to yes. So we're going to adjourn for 3 minutes. So we're going to do it right now. All right. Adjourn for 3 minutes. All right, sir. I hereby reopen this meeting. I hereby reopen this meeting. Members of Parliament, does anyone else wishes the floor? MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to have the floor. MP Westcott Williams suggested to write a letter, or at least as a committee to come to a decision that we will write a letter to the Minister of Justice. And some pointers were mentioned, if I have it correctly. I also would like to add to that letter the question in regards to next to the UNOC, which other local companies will be assisting in the rehabilitation / resocialization, if that can be provided to us. And if, for example, the organization presented here today is not one of those organizations, of course they would have to accept. I would like to know why that decision has been taken, because I would like to get some clarity on, next to the overhead of UNOC, who are the local participants in the rehabilitation / resocialization projects connected to what was brought forward recently by the Justice Ministry, which was also posted on their socials. So I'm referring to that, not to the meeting we had. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. I turn now to, is there any other members of Parliament wishes the floor? I turn now to Dr. Boston. Dr. Boston, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the members of Parliament, I will answer MP Westcott's question. Yes, there are reports, not one, reports sent to the Ministry of Justice and the prison management team. And as we indicated in our presentation, we even went through the years that we have submitted those reports. So that is information that you can solicit from those departments. Then I will move on to, through you, Mr. Chairman, to MP Roseberg. So MP Roseberg, yes, you asked these questions maybe a few times, so I want to really answer it for you. Climb Foundation was hired, so the TOR, I'll go back there. The TOR, for example, stated that they need 15 hours. This is a true number. 15 hours for a GED program. So we were not responsible, and this maybe can answer the questions for all members of Parliament. We were not responsible for coming up with carpentry, coming up with technical, or anything like that. We weren't responsible for all other courses that we hear members of Parliament sometimes ask. We were responsible for 15 hours of GED. Now, what we recognize, as mentioned before, if you're going to school, a teacher that is actually an effective teacher is going to assess you. They're going to see which level that you're on. For example, I don't speak Papiamento, but if I want to sign up for a Papiamento class, even if it's a beginner's class, the teacher needs to assess the students to know within that beginner's class the various levels, because maybe I don't even know the sounds of the letters, which is true. You know, but somebody else might be able to say 1 or 2 words, and some may be able to say very short sentences. So you now need to be able in that one class to be able to accommodate the diverse needs of the students. So Climb Foundation was hired only 15 hours because that is what they could have afforded. And we had to break that up between Point Blanche Prison and MLC. That was the request. Okay, so at least you know that part. And the tender was there, so there's data on that you can also retrieve from the ministry. You know, maybe with their budget, that is what they could have afforded at the time. And so that brings me to the question that you asked, or I'll just say this in general. We also, organizations reach out to us all the time. We don't have to do this as Climb Foundation since we're only hired at the prison to do GED classes. And when I say GED, I do it like this, right? But we have, for example, sometimes when K1, like Rice Foundation, they are now very close with us as well. When they have certain individuals that they need to do extra work, they reach out to us because, again, you have organizations that do not have teachers, and that's important, which brings me to MP, through you, Mr. Chairman, to MP Jansen, just for clarity. There's no new tender, I don't think that, I'm not sure, I don't know. The tender that we're referring to is the tender that we got, yes? So the young lady, and I want to reiterate, very intelligent young lady, because that's our own. You know, she came back from school and everything, and she started and she did that. However, education was not her area. Why aren't we? I think that's why we're here. Dr. Pierre is going to explain us some more. We felt obligated to come to Parliament, not because of the Minister of Justice. We decided to come here so that we can inform Parliament that we are listening every time that you have, that the Parliament meetings air. We are fastened to it, and our students and everyone. And the basic questions that we hear sometimes, and lack of the in-depth knowledge of what really education is on St. Martin, it baffled us. We felt it is important to come here to explain what you already have at the prisons. So the data is there, and I'm not saying that Parliament probably did not know that there's data, but there's local data from years from when we were there. 3 years, Dr. Pierre said, but I do want to tell the members of Parliament and all who's listening. I have been part of the prison, not on the Climb Foundation, part of the prison for years in federal government. I worked together with Mr. Matthews, Mr. Francis. We worked at a prison. It's not new. So for us, we have seen over the years and over the times of all the programs that MP Roseberg mentioned about carpentry and sewing and so forth. So here's what we had proposed back then. But the tender went out anyway. Have students, have inmates sign up for the programs they want. Have a list of programs. These are the programs that they want to sign up for, and then you carry out your education. I even came up with a name, and I'm going to say it now, because, and even though it's already in the media for years, it's been there, nobody's going to take it and make it theirs. I'm going to coin that here today. Prison Education Program. It was PEP. Pull it up, and you will see. Prison education, that means you take away this GED and this. No, you have a prison education program, and there are a list of programs that persons can sign up for what they would want to go into. In fact, I had a conversation with MP Irion. I don't know if you remember this. I did not know MP Irion at the time and so forth. So it took me some courage to walk over to him to tell him this. I asked MP Irion at the time that he was doing Coursera for the community and everything. And I just wanted to get so close. Sometimes we can't reach you. We can't reach you. I know you think that we can, but we cannot reach you. And when I saw MP Irion, I was not sure if I could walk up to him because it was, you know, we were out in public. I was not sure what to do. But I, again, felt obligated, not for myself, but for the students, the inmates. He had already transitioned out of being the Minister of Finance. But I said, you know, MP Irion, one of the things I wanted at the prison, it was Coursera. And he's saying to me that, but we did Coursera at the prison. And I was like, nobody told me. He said, how nobody told you? But then I recognized this. We were talking about two different things. Yes, we were both talking about Coursera, but he meant Coursera for the staff. I wanted Coursera for my, so I was not clear. I wanted Coursera for my students. Why? Coursera, you can move at your own pace. You can decide which courses you want to take. And before MP Irion came up with this, or when I heard him say it, when we were in the UAE, that is where I learned Coursera. They told educators, every single educator, no matter your degree, need to take a Coursera course, take whatever you want. to make sure that you continue, development. So there are programs that we have recommended, list of programs that we sat with inmates that they want to do, and we've shared those things, and those can be, again, you can solicit those from the ministry. And then I would just want to bring in MP, through you, Mr. Chairman, to yourself. I don't know how that part works. So you said it would be sad if we're stopping or so forth, and also MP Jansen Webster. It breaks our heart, it does. And this happens to any person who is passionate about what you're doing. Passionate. When I was in elementary school and they moved me, they asked me to leave grade 1 to go to grade 6 because the children need me there. But I felt like grade 1 students needed me because I need them to get strong foundation. Then they moved me from when I got Teacher of the Year to St. Martin Vocational Training School. I was like, I just got Teacher of the Year at elementary school. I felt it was a punishment that you're making me go to vocational training school, best experience of my life. But you always feel like if you leave that this section, that another one is going to get affected. We are moving on, MP Lewis, and all that are asking. We will not be returning, and I want to make it clear that it has nothing to do with the inmates. The inmates are awesome. I'm hoping that they can hear it, because respectfully with giant inmates and just they really know that we care, and they treat us, Mr. Chairman, through you, with compassion and respect. So it's not the inmates. We have reached to the point where we will not continue, and I call it this, and I'm going to make the phrase here as well. I always say to Dr. Pierre, we will not be educated beggars. We will not be educated beggars on St. Martin. And I thank you.
Thank you for your response, Dr. Boston. I see. Okay. Before we continue, I'm gonna allow them to complete, and then I'm gonna give the floor over to MP Westcott Williams. Dr. Pierre, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want both MP La Cruz's question and MP Veronica Webster's question. MP La Cruz asked about whether it is anger or frustration. And for us, it's actually both, because you just heard it from Dr. Boston. It is frustration because we know what works, not just from a theoretical standpoint, and I think that is the reason why we were so cautious in the beginning to ensure that people know what it is that we do and our background. So we know it not just from an education background, like how people would say, yes, you have the theoretical knowledge, but you don't have the practical knowledge. We know exactly what works. And the reason why we know is because we have done it. So that's the frustration. The other part of the frustration is having to try to convince people over and over. And I think you hear it when Dr. Boston speaks about the GD part. Trying to convince people about a situation over and over and over again. There's anger, and the anger is because of our students. And when I say our students, I mean the inmates. Because an MP said it earlier that they have to get out. So there's anger for the fact that you know what works. You have seen it work. You have tried to convince individuals that it works and that's the best way to approach it. And then now you have individuals come out and you recognize, and again, we've stayed very close. My area of expertise in research is an area called participatory action research, where we engage the stakeholders. So if you're doing research with teachers, you want teachers as part of the research process. So when we speak about what what programs that the inmates want, it is not because we just sit down in a room somewhere and say we think that that might be the best. We engage them. And because we engage them, we know exactly what it is that they would want. And because we have been on the ground, we know exactly what can work. So there's anger for the fact about what could happen, the consequences for our students. And furthermore, the consequences for our society. Because we continue hearing, and I'm going to look at it from a male standpoint. You notice that the inmates are predominantly male. How are we addressing those issues? How are we ensuring that the social, emotional that they need, so when they get out, the situation that they would face is something different from a female? So we are angry about what the consequences can be when we can clearly see where it will go. And I'll tell you that from another experience I had. I was a principal in an elementary school, and I can remember seeing a student in grade 2. And in grade 2, I can see his behavior, and I could know that if we do not do anything to address it, it will just get worse. And it's the same thing I'm seeing. If we use the same old paradigm, that's where the anger comes from. We continue to use the same old paradigm without using any creativity to address. St. Martin is extremely unique. There is no other island that has those set of conditions. Therefore, and I get frustrated sometimes, again, the frustration part, when I hear people say about we do not need to reinvent the wheel. We might not need to reinvent the wheel, but we need a different wheel. So because of how St. Martin is, we cannot take a program from elsewhere without engaging local information to be effective. It requires creativity. It requires something new. It requires innovation in order. So this is where the anger and the frustration comes from. Both of us are PhDs in creativity, creative leadership for innovation and change. So we see it clearly. When we speak sometimes, we actually speak about the fact that probably the PhD was the worst thing that we did because it opened up our eyes to see a lot of what is actually happening. All right? So to summarize, so that is it. Both anger and frustration at exactly the same time. To summarize, this is what we were here for today. We were here to ensure that Parliament knows exactly what is going on in terms of the data, what could be effective so that Parliament can make informed decisions. Informed decisions knowing that there is local data, local research. We have done research, CLIME does research that is published in international journals. I am a peer reviewer for an international journal on education. And at the same time, I am in a classroom teaching. So that means I have a perspective that I can see exactly what might be going on. So we wanted to share that information with you. We recognize that, and I will say it again because that's what we said in the presentation. If we are truly in our hearts, we truly care about ensuring that individuals do not come out worse than they went in, we have to use inclusive, culturally responsive practices. We have to ensure that the programs are creative. St. Martin, like I said, is unique, so we need to have approaches that are grounded in the local realities. We need our inmates, and I think it was MP Jansen Webster who said that. We need our inmates who are leaving the prison to see examples from there. They need to see that, okay, I was from Dutch Quarter, but I can be a doctor. I am from St. Peter's, I can be a doctor. They need that model for them to be able to ascribe to. And we have to be able to do that to our students. So that is where the connection between, when we spoke about the education, the school to prison pipeline comes in. The research shows that. The research shows that students need models in order for them to know what it is that they need to emulate. So if we really care about rehabilitation, we need to keep those practices in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pierre. Thank you, Dr. Boston. I look to the floor, and I now give the floor over to MP Westcott Williams. MP Westcott Williams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I really don't want to prolong the discussion more than necessary, but especially given Dr. Pierre's last comments, it only for me emphasizes that we need to get information from the Ministry of Justice on this matter, and that is why my first question is whether we have received the presentation just made from Dr. Boston and Dr. Pierre. If we have received it, okay, that is good, because then I can follow up on the years that were mentioned in the presentation when you provided different reports, because I really want to get to the content of these reports and the sequence of these reports. Because, Mr. Chairman, and this is what I'm coming to, and why my emphasis on us reaching out to the Ministry of Justice is the fact that members of Parliament would recall, and the general public, that we had a presentation here in Parliament regarding the soft part of the expansion of the prison in terms of the rehabilitation and what is being looked at and who will be part of the different aspects of the rehabilitation. Now, whether this goes so much into detail as education and education program is something that we would have to inquire about. But I think it's important to get an understanding as to the different reports and recommendations and compare it to where we are right now, where a leg or a collaboration with UNOPS regarding the rehabilitation program for the prison was presented here in Parliament with certain anticipated steps, etc. And that's what I want to get clear from, of course, the side of the Ministry of Justice. So I just wanted to, so Mr. Chairman, if in our letter we can be specific on that part as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's just those two brief comments that I wanted to make before you close off. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. So before we close off the meeting, so basically we have a proposal, and our proposal is that a letter is going to come from the Committee of Justice to the Minister with regard to the clarification position regarding the disconnect, also what is being portrayed in what is happening on the grounds. The next to the DC, which offer local companies or which other local companies will be assisting, and of course, understanding of the different reports and further recommendations. Ladies and gentlemen, do you all agree, honorable members of Parliament? I see we have MP Otley wishes the floor. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, I was kind of waiting for exactly what we ascertained, the reason behind the issue. And, you know, St. Martin, we have what you call pride. And I hear Dr. Boston say we'll not be educated beggars. And one thing I would say, when you're, for me, as a member of Parliament, when persons are in front of me, I take it very serious. And I believe sometimes clear-cut, direct conversation can solve a lot of things. Because it wasn't until you answered my question, the whole entire Parliament was trying to figure out where you're coming from, through you, Mr. Chair, and what's going on. And my thing is, now that we're going to write the letter is, we have seen your work. We understand your input. But should we write the letter? And I say this to ask you the question. Forget the blatant disrespect and not including you. That is a customary thing. The minister don't even include most of their partners and coalition members. So it's a customary thing. Put that aside. We need to know your willingness to continue. You're not begging, but I need to know if it makes sense for me now to fight, because I'm ready to fight. But do you want to be fought for? You're not begging, but I need to know. Because I don't want it to be that we, the parliament, all of us here, and we see my colleague, and I must just say this for 1 second, MP Jansen Webster. The reason I understand, one of her first comments and statements as a member of parliament was about the prison. And she made it clear. She said, I got 0 votes at the prison. So when you see MP Jansen speak and react emotional, this is pure passion. And we're not even on the same parties, but I can say that for her. And I can see the passion in you. And I'm ready to fight, because I will not, we are seeing it too much, too often, will not allow our people to be pushed aside. Because when we were here, we were given a presentation. Although the topic said rehabilitation, the presentation had nothing to do with rehabilitation. And myself and the chair lady said, you will have to, I don't want to say the word dumb it down, because you will have to simplify it for the public to understand where the rehabilitation is. Today, you spoke and we got it one time. So I will not be a part of pushing what was the fabric of rehabilitation in the prison, in the juvenile system aside. But I need to know, although you are not putting in for the bid, are you interested in continuing so I know how to fight? I can speak for me and speak for my party member. Are you interested? Once you say you are, then we off the chain. We're ready to go.
Thank you, MP Otley. I would also like to not only reflect, but reiterate exactly what MP Otley just mentioned, because again, it's about St. Martin is our home. St. Martin is all that we have. And of course, the leaders of tomorrow is also important, because a leader can come from Point Blanche Prison. We have another colleague here said from prison to parliament, meaning rehabilitation is necessary, because we have a member of parliament that shared his experience here as well. So just for you to reflect again on your decision, on your words, and also, like I say, there's always expansion. There's always expansion in whatever business. I don't think in a foundation or a business, you just want to stay limited to, say, for example, 2 employees, 3 employees, but you want to also, by extension, replicate your own self. Somebody will watch you, will have you all as role models, and would want to do the same thing that you're doing, and to, how you say, direct them into that field. So it's important that we have educators that have the passion, because I've seen over the years, for example, when I became a cop, you have love for executing as a police officer, or when someone becomes a doctor, before becoming that medical doctor, they dream of helping people. And after doing the job for so long, they're looking for their next paycheck. And for you to be in education and still have that same passion as if you just started is exactly what St. Martin needs. That's just my 2 cents. Do you have anything else you would like to end off stating? Dr. Pierre, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to respond to MP Otley's question, this direct question. The This was not the objective of this meeting. The objective of this meeting was not about us. And this is all what we're trying to this is what we're trying to say. This is much, much, much bigger than us. So this is not about us. It is not about whether we want a contract or anything like that. It is much bigger than us. It is about St. Martin itself. It is about the issues that we always encounter and we continue to speak about when it comes to justice and education. But we always remain, that is what we have always done. We always remain committed to our community and believe in the advancement of our people. So when we were in the education system, in the organized education system in the classrooms, and we were encountering the same frustration and anger that MP Lacruz spoke about, we left that organized system, but we did not lose our purpose. Our purpose remained there. So it is really, really has nothing to do with us. And like Dr. Boston said in the beginning, we believe it is our moral obligation to share what it is that we know. Because I know that most of the parliamentarians here did not know what it is that we know. So we believe that it would actually be morally irresponsible if we kept that information to ourselves and not share it. But it is not about us. It is much bigger than us. It is about making sure that these inmates are in the best position possible when they leave that facilities. That is the point. Thank you very much.
Add to what Dr. Pierre said, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the Honorable MP Otley, direct answer, I'm very direct. So it may look like I'm mad sometimes, it's not, I'm direct. The answer is no. Do not advocate for us. In fact, we have a commercial we have a commercial out saying thank you as of December 1st that we will be finished. And we are actually excited. So you would hear in there, we are excited for all those who have worked along with us. We had great times at the prison, real great times. You know, so we thank you for that. Each and every one of you for even staying here and coming. Even for you, MP Irian, through you, Mr. Chairman, not being part of this committee, but coming out to be here. We want to thank you for that, the opportunity. MP Jansen, I had to try to keep it together when you were like that because that's how we feel for real. At one point, Dr. Pierre asked, what are we coming here to do? To go and talk about the same kind of things we've been trying to advocate for, but this is the highest body, so we decided he used the word before we put it in the presentation. He said we have an obligation. So that's why we're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Dr. Pierre and Dr. Boston. Members of Parliament, reflecting on my notes, this meeting was also, like I said, it was dated since June. It was requested since June, and they had the opportunity some months later to give their reporting and their presentation. It was much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. I would like again to thank the representatives of the Climb Foundation. I love the name, of course, because climbing means to excel, for your presentation, your participation in this meeting, and I hereby close this meeting. Thanks again.